thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yes. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, September 24th. And today, interesting enough, Dale, today is World Dense Breast Day.
Why are you referring to me?
I figured you'd enjoy that one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have man boobs, so I guess they're dense breasts, right?
I mean, I feel like this is something in regards with breast cancer, but, you know, at the same time, dense breast could mean also, too, that you have implants.
Yeah, but when you examine breasts for cancer and they're dense, it's really difficult.
Fair enough.
I get it.
And let's see, what else do we have today? We have, it's National Cherries Jubilee Day. National Punctuation Day. You know, if we didn't have commas, you know what I'm saying, we wouldn't have thousands or even millions.
Yeah.
And it is also National Women's Health and Fitness Day today.
There you go.
Yes. 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 I'm, you know, fit women. I'm with that. I'm with that all the way, all day. Well, and thank you all for joining us. And what's that, Shaun?
I was saying, I guess I better get my workout in today then.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's actually the day for it. I guess I can't skip it any longer. I've kind of fallen off the wagon a bit on that.
Well, you know, it's never a better time to get back on the wagon. But thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So thank you all for joining us from whatever platform you are joining us from. And we are going to kick it off this morning because the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's marijuana enforcement team raids illegal grow sites on publicly accessible lands at 6 sites across California, you guys. That's right. CDFW's marijuana enforcement team conducted enforcement operations at 6 publicly accessible sites across California in July and August, where hidden cannabis grow operations were negatively impacting natural resources. During July and August, a specialized law enforcement team at the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the CDFW, conducted raids on 6 illegal cannabis grow sites hidden within sensitive habitats and watersheds in 5 California counties. CDFW's marijuana enforcement team, better known as MET, led the enforcement operations at illegal grow sites in Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and San Mateo counties. Supported an operation led by other CDFW Cannabis Enforcement Program officers at an illegal grow site in Santa Cruz County, and supported operations jointly led by CDFW's Cannabis Enforcement Program and the U.S. Department of Agriculture Forest Service at an illegal grow site in Tehama County. The enforcement operations took place on lands the public can access, and including Forest Service property, municipal water district property, and large underdeveloped private properties, and where part of CDFW's ongoing work to help dismantle the illegal cannabis market in California, which contributes to a wide range of environmental impacts and risks to the public. In a quote, "Our water is a delicately balanced system that enables communities to thrive and the environment to flourish. Illegal cannabis grows threaten that balance, and if you violate the law, we will do everything in our power to hold you accountable," said Governor Gavin Newsom. Nearby water communities and fish and wildlife depend on clean water from these watersheds, said CDFW Director Carlton H. Bonham. And when criminals steal or destroy the natural resources that support California's extraordinary biodiversity, we are committed to stopping them, and we have the teams in place to do that. No matter how far into the wilderness they try to hide their operations. Based on evidence collected at 6 sites and all interviews with apprehended suspects, MET officers concluded that transnational criminal organizations operated the grows. These organizations and their affiliated gangs often ignore or are unaware of the damage they cause to natural resources. For example, they use fertilizers and pesticides that contaminate soil and water and divert water essential for fish and wildlife. Because such groups have a history of violence and armed encounters with law enforcement at illegal grow sites, enforcement operations involving them remain dangerous, they say. With support from the CDFW Cannabis Enforcement Program officers and the Multi-Educational Eradication and Prevention of Illicit Cannabis, better known as the EPIC program, that's a cute name, and local allied agencies, MET officers, that's the MET officers, apprehended 8 suspects during the 6 operations and arrested them for crimes including depositing hazardous substances on land belonging to another, cannabis cultivation resulting in pollution of waters of the state, cannabis cultivation causing substantial environmental harm to public lands, cultivation of cannabis with unlawful take, resisting arrests, and the officers also seized and removed partially used bottles of highly toxic substances, carbophan and methamphetaminoids, pesticides, banned for usage in the United States due to health and safety hazards. Eradicated 21,000 cannabis plants, which CDFW estimates would have used up to 9.5 million gallons of water over their growing cycles if they had not been eradicated. They restored water flow at 5 locations where water had been illegally diverted, and they removed more than 2,300 pounds of trash and infrastructure and staged the sites for future cleanup. They just also destroyed more than 150 pounds of cannabis that had been processed for sale. Seized nearly 2 illegally possessed firearms, and one of the suspects at a site where a firearm was recovered attempted to flee when Met officers announced themselves as police officers. He was apprehended by one of Met's canines. In a quote, oh man, you guys are going to love this. "I'm proud of our Met officers and the work they do to protect our natural resources and help keep the people of California safe," said CDFW Chief Enforcement Nathaniel Arnold. "This team works long days at a fast operational pace to locate illegal grow sites that criminal enterprises have intentionally hidden in locations that are difficult to access." Consisting of 10 officers spread throughout the state from its southern border to Mexico to its northern border with Oregon, Met is the only team within CDFW's Cannabis Enforcement Program that specializes in conducting raids and apprehending suspects in cleanup grows run by transnational criminal organizations on public lands. The work is intense and often starting hours before dawn and going late into the night, and MET officers can be away from home for days or weeks at a time. Met officers learned of 3 of the 6 sites they raided in July and August through reports from concerned citizens, and in one case, a hunter scouting for deer, and the public remains one of the best sources for reports of illegal cannabis cultivation activity on federal, state, and county property. CDFW's fact sheet report, "Illegal Cannabis Grows on Public Lands," provides information about how to share tips confidentially through their Cal Tip line. And to share a tip 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can call 888-334-2258 or send them a text to 847-411. That's TIP 411. CDFW established its marijuana enforcement team MET in 2014 as a special operations law enforcement team whose specific mission is to protect public safety and California natural resources that threaten by illegal cannabis cultivation on public lands and trespass grows on large private lands. And the team's work spurred the development and expansion of CDFW's overreaching cannabis enforcement program, which has 8 other teams focused primarily on enforcement operations at private property and grow sites. Officers must pass a rigorous selection process to obtain a position on MET, and they train together for multiple days, at least once a month, and they work with operations together multiple times per month. And all experienced MET officers have graduated from a special weapons and tactics, better known as SWAT school, similar to traditional law enforcement officers on city and local SWAT teams. And some MET officers are certified snipers, and some are certified canine handlers, and most are instructors on subjects such as firearms and defense tactics. However, unlike many municipal SWAT teams, CDFW's MET officers also specialize in operating in rural environments and have a background in the traditional wildlife officer work that laid the foundation for MET activities. They have extensive training and experience in tracking, fieldcraft, land navigation, and rural tactics because they work in remote areas far and from any assistance. They are required to have higher levels of knowledge in survival and medical skills than most law enforcement officers. During operations, MET officers often are required to hike several hours to their target locations in steep mountainous terrain at night and in triple-digit heat during the day while carrying 50 pounds of gear. The locations MET officers investigate are so remote that suspects being transported to jails for processing often must be removed by helicopter because MET is responsible for executing CDFW's high-risk operations. MET officers travel extensively, often with little notice, you guys. Well, interesting little information about MET. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about all this tactical work that they were doing in California for six sites, you guys. I feel like this should be a lot more, but nonetheless, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Waste of time. I don't know what else to tell them. It makes the cops feel good. And I've represented cops, and I know that they like to be given words of affirmation for things they do, and it's dangerous work and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But this is just a complete fucking waste of time. Because 99% of the weed's still going out of state and going into the black market. Mm-hmm. And they get to have some sort of a, let's go pat ourselves in the back now, rather than understanding you're not fixing the problem. Mm-hmm. It's giving yourself a PR moment. Legislature needs to green light it, and you won't have to be making illegal farm operations. If everybody that wants to grow weed can do it and put it into a legal market. It's like they're not getting this. Let's go give everybody some, publicity for going after a few, remote grow sites. Well, they've been growing up in these hills for
Dale,
a long time.
Dale, these are grows that are operated by transnational gangs.
And it's not new. When I went into prison, okay, I met a whole bunch of guys who in Sac County Jail who were busted growing up in the remote parts of California, mm-hmm. and they got them for federal charges. They're doing the same damn thing. They were cartel grown, and this was 20 years ago. Okay, this ain't brand new. It's been going on for a long time. If you want to fix the problem, you got to get your head out of your ass.
Yep.
Stop letting the cops tell you how to do this, and work on it as an economic matter, and take away the economic incentive to grow weed illegally.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dale's spot on. I thought the end was kind of funny, Jason. It read like public affairs statements from those unit operators.
It was a public affairs statement. It's exactly what it was. Yes. I
could hear it.
Yep.
Yeah. But also though, those guys, if they're former veterans and they're SEER trained, they got some good training. So I wouldn't fuck around and find out. I would not. Mm-hmm. Dale's right. It's been happening for a while. The best way to solve it is by, decrim, open the market, etc. Don't be crazy. I get that there are some tricky balances to that, especially when it comes to security and national security. And I think that they're going to be leaning more into national security concerns, especially this administration, when it comes to crackdowns. And I would imagine ahead of reschedule, deschedule, we're going to see more crackdowns. So folks should be a little bit careful. And it will be likely tied to national security issues because that's just been the game since, the CIA operations in Latin America in the 60s and 70s.
I'm surprised they didn't find any minors at these grow sites.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing is not all, yes, there are definitely bad actors in the illicit market, but there are also mom and pops. They're not bad actors. They just can't afford a license trying to figure it out.
Most of those people, the people you're talking about on that usually are growing on their own personal land. They're not walking out into the national forests and into these remote areas and doing guerrilla style growing.
Fair, that's fair, and they're probably not tactically loaded up.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're not California, not Texas, where it would be kind of normal, actually. But the thing I do at the beginning, I know, Jason, we don't always see eye to eye on climate change or environmentalism, but I do think I'm just one of those people who's into good cannabis, and if you're if you are having an impact on the environment, I'm not sorry for you when you receive enforcement.
In all fairness, I'm not for people growing on our national parks and diverting water and things like that. So you know what I mean. Overall, but I'm not a greeny liberal like, oh, we need this Green New Deal and oh my God, the environment is collapsing and our polar ice caps are melting and all that bullshit. So,
I wasn't trying to push a button.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure that people understand where I'm at. Like, I don't want people ruining our national parks. Those are our national parks for people to enjoy, and those habitats for the animals that live there. You know what I'm saying? They need a nice, clean home, and everybody, just like you want a nice, clean home where you live. You know what I'm saying? Those animals deserve that too, and you know what I'm saying? Let them live. And, pick up your trash, you know what I'm saying? Don't be dirty hippies when you go out and, you know what I'm saying, camping and whatnot. Pick up your trash. Don't leave stuff all behind, you know what I mean? Because the environment isn't going to clean itself.
And it's like, it goes against the whole, obviously, if they're bad actors and they're just in it for the money, they don't care about, the sacredness or the sanctity of the plant, like the material that you're growing it in, how the nutrients of the soil affect it. Like, so I wouldn't want that on any land, anywhere, or in any kind of cannabis. But, and I agree with you, Jason. I know that some folks can go way off the rails on the extremism with the environmentalism, but protecting our land and being good stewards of the plant and the land is always a good idea.
I'm all good with being good to the environment overall, as far as like cleaning up a mess and maybe trying to leave it better than how you found it. I'm all for that. I think that's just like good public general community service. But when you start telling me that that all the CO2 gases and the emission and whatnot are participating to global warming and California is going to fall in the ocean pretty soon, it's all total bullshit. Chris, do you have any thoughts on all this?
I do. First of all, the picture that they have on the article looks really cool with all the weed plants around the Joshua tree. Have you guys ever done that 49 Palms hike out there by Joshua Tree National Park to the Oasis? It reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But I've lived out in San Bernardino County in the desert. I've gotten to talk to some of these guys. I've pulled up on one of these farms kind of accidentally when I was just out there off-roading. I had a guy pull a gun out on me. But most of these guys that are out there working those farms are no different than the guys that got raided at Glass House. They're just workers, trying to provide for their families.
Just trying to pay off their coyotes.
And the guys that are funding these things never get caught, and they're hedging their bets. They have 50 of these plots going on out there, and maybe one of them gets raided. And they're going to pick up the guys that are working there illegally. It's not the cartel guys funding it. Of course, I'm against doing any of this on public land or trespassing on someone else's private land, 100%. But like Dale said, if you make it so hard to participate in the legal market, this is the result of that. And and I think part of it is being perpetuated because we need to keep feeding this police state that has made a lot of money on illegal cannabis over the years.
And they don't want to give it up. It's how they justify their budgets.
It's like California, where it's so socially accepted, we still have to sector off some part of the black market for there to be raids, for there to be this continual funding and the excuse of all this taxpayer money being spent. If you really reread that whole article, the environmental justification, the propagandizing of the police force that they've created for this, it's almost like it's just reading like a justification of like, we need your tax money to spend on this. We just need to be burning more tax money. So obviously there's a lot of flaws in this argument, and like I think we're all in agreement. We don't want to see shit getting dumped into public water, into groundwater, destruction of our natural resources. But no one's drawing back to what the original symptoms are of this, and this will just continue to happen as long as they make the legal market inaccessible for the average person. You
know what I would like to see with these Met officers, because they sound super skilled and super trained. I'd like to see them as like Boy Scout troop leaders. That's what I would like to see them as. Boy Scout troop leaders. Teach these kids how to be men and not be so much little girls and whatnot. Teach them how to, tie knots and start fires and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Teach them how to jump out of helicopters onto farms.
I'm good with that. You know what I mean? Save the eggs. You know what I'm saying? You got to protect the chickens from the wolves.
That's kind of like the thing. They could be Boy Scout troop leaders, or they could do what they are tactically trained to do, which is to operate on a federal level and let this be, if it's a security issue, truly if they're going to pitch it as a national security issue, it shouldn't be local law enforcement running this thing, especially if you're going to want to catch someone who's a little bit higher up. Like, let those operations, then make it a military operation, make it a clandestine,
look at you advocating for military operations. Look at this. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to get a soundbite of this right here. This is gold.
Don't realize that I worked in transnational security.
I know you did. I know.
Because we have an opportunity to do something really good for the people.
I'm just so glad to hear you
do good. And then if we're going to deal with bad actors, I just get very frustrated with law enforcement overstepping, doing exactly what Chris is talking about, not actually solving the problem. They could actually develop an op and solve this, but they don't want to. It's
And why do these raids on these farms always happen in September, right before harvest season? It's like every year you hear these same stories somewhere out in the desert, usually San Bernardino County.
San Bernardino.
It's like the same time of year, it's like late August, all of September, they're raiding them.
Well, in all fairness,
when they're planting the farm, because they can't put a dollar value on it to make the justification.
There's another argument for that, and I kind of understand why. Is that they spot a lot of these through helicopter flights and whatnot, and the plants need to be big enough for them to be able to identify from a higher elevation. So I can understand why they do them at that time. You know what I mean?
You can just drive around the desert and find these things. It's really not hard. I've bumped into multiples of them just by accident, just being out there.
Well, maybe in the desert, but not in like the rural forest areas.
That's true.
It's also like sometimes, look, they had public affairs statements in this. It's not, there's timing to this. Like, the government recognizes industry's timing, and industry should recognize the government's timing as well. They're considerate of those things.
Speaking of timing, we're going to roll. It's time for our first commercial, and we are going to be right back. Salvation Army sale.
State sale, yeah.
Nobody talks about how much this costs.
Yeah.
And that really This continues to cost money, and it solves nothing.
You're right, Dale.
Yeah.
They didn't say there should be some type of a disclaimer that they put on these stories to say, hey, this cost taxpayers X number of this dollars and it yielded X number of this dollars in revenue. You know what I'm saying? So we could see a cost benefit analysis, you know what I mean? Almost like a nutrition label on food. That'd be great.
If they did that and then they compared it to the actual market value of when they like put all the pounds on display and they're like, look at what we got.
They're always going to do. They'll always do cop math, so they'll always be able to justify it with whatever they pull. You know what I mean? Because they'll weigh the dirt if they have to get the quantification right. But nonetheless, I have one more story for you guys. Because President Trump's decision to reschedule marijuana followed months of White House debate and dozens of meetings, you guys. President Donald J. Trump's decision to move forward with rescheduling marijuana followed months of internal debate at the White House, led most prominently by Susie Wiles and Stephen Miller, according to a senior advisor to the president. According to the advisor, Stephen Miller quickly emerged as one of the most prominent opponents to rescheduling, while Susie Wiles strongly pushed the president to embrace the move. The advisor said that Miller was particularly vocal in his opposition to the move, which he called a terrible mistake. And Susie Wiles argued the move was a clear political winner with strong bipartisan support. Despite Miller's opposition, his wife, Kate Miller, recently had Mike Tyson on her podcast to talk about cannabis rescheduling, with Tyson saying he expects, in quotes, good news on the issue. The advisor called this an acknowledgement that proponents of rescheduling won the debate, he says. In the weeks and months leading up to Trump's August 11th comments that an announcement would come over the next few weeks, he met with dozens of lawmakers, high-profile donors, CEOs, and celebrities to gather perspectives on both sides of the issue. The advisor said these meetings, which began in March, were part of a deliberate strategy to weigh competing arguments before making the final call. The advisor, who asked to remain anonymous, said Trump made his final decision to proceed with rescheduling around June, and though he had been leaning in that direction from the onset, they said. That timing matches a private meeting that month where Trump reportedly told two members of the U.S. House of Representatives, both in leadership positions, "We'll be moving forward soon with rescheduling marijuana." And that exchange, confirmed by a staffer for one of the lawmakers present, was first reported back in June. Further aligning with his timeline in July, Scott's Miracle-Gro CEO James Hagedorn said he had multiple conversations with President Donald J. Trump, and he took office in January, or since he took office in January. And speaking on rescheduling, Hagedorn said in a quote, "There's one person who could change it, and he's told me and others that he will, and that's the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump." Despite reaching a decision in the summer, the advisor said Trump has resisted rushing an announcement. Instead, he wants to focus on crafting messaging that would align with his tough on crime platform while also acknowledging the growing calls to fully deschedule marijuana. The option ultimately landed on to address the option ultimately landed on to address the latter, and the advisor says is to form a commission to study descheduling and its broader implications. The advisor said that if not for the Wall Street Journal article on August 8th, they don't believe Trump would have spoken publicly about rescheduling until September or October, and with some in his inner circle suggesting a wait until closer to the midterms, at which point he would have made a formal announcement on both the move to reschedule and the creation of a descheduling commission. The article, according to the advisor, made Trump feel the need to address the issue earlier than intended, and given a formal announcement wasn't ready, Trump decided to tease a forthcoming decision rather than clearly state the administration's stance. But still, the advisor noted that the core plan remains unchanged, with an announcement expected imminently, they say. Well, I'm going to say this. I'm not expecting the announcement imminently. I think that's just kind of gaslighting the general public overall. But what I will say is this, is I do believe that they tried to get Trump with a gotcha question. When they asked him this, they tried to catch him off guard, and Trump, being as quick to his feet and full of wit and whatnot, had an answer to fire right back at him. But I don't think that he was planning on talking about this when he got asked that question. But nonetheless, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I think this is just a complete waste of time. Rescheduling is going to continue the nonsense going on across the country with trying to bring out the legal industry, because it's not going away. If you try to hand this to pharma, okay, to make pills, if you will, or tinctures or other things like that, and they're never going to allow you to buy smokable product through a pharmacy. That's just not going to happen. Traditional market's going to continue, and big pharma is going to try to wrap its hands around this, and the battle may change to a new platform, but the battle's going to continue because the American people are voting with their pocketbook. They want to have access to cannabis everywhere. Okay? And when you've got that kind of pressure, then the rest of this is just a game. I think Trump wants to look at placating the pharmaceutical industry at some point. You continue to talk about rescheduling and a descheduling commission to what? Talk about this again?
Well,
I mean, they come listen to our show and ask us, what do we in the industry think about descheduling? Like, how fast can you do it? Quit fucking around with this stuff.
Well, you know,
what do we keep talking about?
You know, Dale, I do like the idea of a descheduling commission. I kind of like that idea. You know, I think you could get something done in a descheduling commission, because you'd have the platform to really battle a lot of the naysayers' arguments right there at the boardroom table. I would be all about that. I would join that in a heartbeat.
I think it's pissing up a rope. We know what the issues are. Okay, we've been talking about this for how long now? Well, commission just means they're going to circle jerk for another year or two and justify their positions on this board and not get shit done.
Of course, they're going to circle jerk for a year, but the point of it is that this is the closest that we're going to get to doing it, because we all know whoever comes in next isn't going to do it.
How do we know that?
Because whoever comes in next is going to be way more establishment than Trump. Trump is the one outlier in politics that we have been fortunate enough to have.
Okay, that is a fair point.
Look at that, Shaun. Holy shit, Shaun. Did you get up on the right side of the bed today, Shaun?
Whatever. You'll know that I'm all about actually analyzing it for what it is, right? So, Dale, I hear you. Why are they kicking the can, or does it seem like a time waste or pissing up a rope? It will time out likely with elections. Like there's a long game strategy everyone's aware of, and then secondly, reschedule, deschedule, and Trump's position. I mean, honestly, because it's interesting. You got to analyze everybody for what yes, I understand like the rhetoric elements and then the actual policy elements, and then the spaces where Trump, like no other, has challenged the judicial branch.
Yeah.
And
it's been great.
Whoa, you know, holy shit, America. We got to lock down our democracy a bit, tighten the bolts. But at the same time, he had already indicated favor towards rescheduling over a year ago when he had spoken on the Florida medical program. So he already indicated and gave us little signs. Are they having conversations? Absolutely. Do I think they have like a shaky plan? 100%. Because just looking at how this kind of has unfolded in Texas, it's not like they're without a plan. They just got to figure out how they're going to enforce it, and then how they're going to make sure that where they can see the pot grow, you know, metaphorically and piggy bank wise, and literally, that they have their alignments, which I think everybody would do, Democrat, Republican, otherwise, it's just human nature. But then on the other side of it, it's got to be a measured method. And I do think that there is a possibility that he would do it just to spite the Democrats. I really do. I think he'll just like push off reschedule, because here's the other thing that trips me up is like, if he was just going to hand it over to Big Pharma, that's fair. But the huge hits that some pharmaceutical companies are taking with the RFK Maha agenda, it makes me question, like, where is everything actually lining up for him as far as investments and interests for his administration. I don't think it's always with big pharma, even though I don't think he's against, giving them a cut.
It's interesting, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, Chris. The president spoke and said that he wanted to make the announcement so that he can tie the messaging to being tough on crime, and I wonder, since Glass House got raided by the feds, if that's going to tie them into something much larger when he comes out and makes this announcement.
I mean, there's definitely political and profit motives here, without a doubt. Like Dale said, I mean, if you look at rescheduling, Schedule 3 does not cover smokables, does not cover vapables, right? So no inhalation at all. Will they probably create some kind of like sub language where, wholesale flower is a raw material and we can move that around? Maybe. But it's, even if they passed it tomorrow, it's going to be at least 1.5 years for them to, pardon the pun, but hash it out and figure out, what this actually means for the state markets. For those people that are fully compliant in certain states that are GMP, maybe that'll open up exporting. I know the rest of the world is dying to get some American cannabis. And then, if you can grow it to export it, that will help local producers. But it's only going to, it's not going to do anything for the craft market. It's not going to do anything for, the state regulated, taxed markets. So it's really hard to say what this is going to mean. This could all just be posturing to win approval. It could all be for nothing. I have mixed feelings about it, and then who's going to come in afterwards? Are they going to reverse all this? Is it Gavin Newsom who's going to be our next president? Who knows?
Not a chance.
So a lot of people think it is. But
a lot of people can be wrong. A lot of people can be wrong.
I'm not hoping for that, but it's probably going to be another billionaire. Like I said, different conversation. I don't think we'll ever see outright descheduling in our lifetime. And cannabis will never be free until we treat it like coffee or tea. So that's how I feel.
Yeah. I worry about the whole Newsom run because I think the one mistake the Democrats make continuously is forcing candidates that people don't want. And right now, yes, he does have a lot of star power, but it's because he's playing off of Trump in a very negative way. And that can only burn so long. Can it win you in an election?
Not a chance.
He's going to have to inspire,
first of all, he'd have to create some sensible policies in California, because whoever is his opponent is going to be a shoo-in to win, because they're just going to say, hey, Gavin Newsom, he's going to make the United States just like California. And then they're going to show pictures of all the homeless encampments in Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco, and everything else like that. And they're going to say, hey, your neighborhood's going to look like this if he's elected, and no one's going to vote for him.
Yeah, man, I think most liberal Democrats outside of California don't understand how much of a mess California has become, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think the Republicans do, though, those mid-tier, because they've seen other little blue cities. Austin is an example where they adopted some California policies and then they pissed Texas off all the way because it wasn't the best way. Sometimes California has very complicated solutions for simple problems, and it fucks a lot of shit up for them.
Well, I wouldn't call those.
Everybody else wants to stay the fuck away from it.
I wouldn't call them solutions, Shaun. I wouldn't call them solutions. I'd call them creation of more problems, trying to alleviate a symptom.
Yeah, it's like what Dale likes to remind us: the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I think you see a lot of more center or more, right of center Republicans who are feeling a little whiplash from the Biden era, and Newsom is not going to be the answer to unite folks,
Well, first of all, I don't understand why everyone is imagining this whole kumbaya unitedness or whatnot. The United States has never been united. If you look at every single election, it's 44 on this side, 44 on that side, with 6%, 12% coming in the middle and trying to figure out who's ultimately going to win. America has never been divided, and people get on this hype like, oh, America's more divided than ever, but no, we're not. Look at all the elections election results throughout your entire lifetime. We're not. That's totally ridiculous. It's just everything is amplified through social media and the internet.
I agree with that, but yeah, social media, the internet, everyone has this perpetual amnesia now, and we live in a time of, there was another time where the party system kind of worked because people had two different approaches to doing something productive. But now we do live in this age of spiteful politics, and people will be happy to do something to undermine what the other party's doing out of spite, even if it doesn't benefit them anymore. Because, I mean, that's what Gavin Newsom's doing on X. Is like he's trolling Trump and just trying to win approval. But it's like, this isn't productive. This isn't getting anything done. This is also just more of this ridiculous political theater going back and forth. And obviously Trump is the king of that. I'm not vetting for either side here, but people respond to that more than ever is what I'm trying to say. And that very possibly could get votes. I want to see, and it's not productive, so. I don't know. It's
fair enough.
It's not
sure, reschedule it. That's my 2 cents. Why not? Let's see what happens.
Well, in this, Steve Blessingham brings up an interesting point. He says, if you're looking for a new hair product, maybe ask Newsom, but that's about it. And so I imagine that will be probably Gavin's new gig when he's out of office and I think it should go on Polymarket, and people should be betting on what hair product will Gavin Newsom become the spokesperson for.
I do think like Chris's point is important to highlight though, because, and also though we can talk about this are we talking about the Kamala article?
No, yeah, we're going into that. We're going to go into that. Dale, I see you shaking your head. Dale, what are you shaking your head about?
Well, 2 things. I want to remind people of what Kennedy said when he was inaugurated. Stop thinking about what the country can do for you. What can you do to make this country work? And we've sort of lost that. That's an apolitical statement. It's not about you. It's about us. And that's why this country has worked for so long. And the other thing is that the Democrats are a coalition party. Okay? And they couldn't form a coalition. The Republicans are a consensus party, and they tend to vote. Once they get enough, they just rally around and do what consensus wants them to do. But close to 40% of the electorate right now doesn't identify with either D or R. Okay? And I don't know that we've had that in my lifetime, I can remember. And so the traditional battles over one position versus another, most of the people in the middle are going, yeah, fuck all of you guys. Yeah. Somebody talk about what I can do. I can't afford to buy a house. Groceries are going up. Gas is going up. My job's insecure. They're taking away my future. Okay. Sit down and talk to people and then come forward with some realistic proposals to reach these people where they are. That's where the Democrats shit the bed last time. They really did. And the Republicans went on like Joe Rogan and appealed to these people. Okay? And the Democrats are like, oh, we're going to go out and have lobster cakes and talk about how we bring men back in. Fuck that. Go to a football game, goddammit. Go to a hockey game. Sit in a bar and have a beer with somebody and ask them, what do you and your wife or significant other talk about the dinner table? How can we address that? And it seems to be lost in all the vitriol right now. It is. And politics is vitriol. But at some point, for God's sakes, I've got children and grandchildren. I'm not going to be around forever. When I go, I'd like to think that my grandchildren can afford buy a house, a car, have a decent job, okay, raise their children, stuff like that. And they do that. And right now, I see the path going over the cliff, and the beating the ground about how I hate the other side is just going to make political nuts worse. We're going to see more people get shot. They just had one this morning in Dallas at the ICE facility.
I saw that.
That was a horrible event. I don't want anybody to get shot, but for God's sakes, when I went into prison, I met some people that I wouldn't trust these motherfuckers with a sharp pencil. They're going to hurt somebody. Okay, they are mentally ill, and they're out there, and it doesn't take much to get them started. Okay, and we're in a position right now where this is just going to get worse unless people stand up on both sides and say, stop it. Stop it. Ted Cruz this morning, I don't like the guy. He was saying, you got to stop this shit. This just hasn't been this bad since I started high school in 1968. That year was horrible. The weatherman we're going,
I mean, there were riots in the street between hard hats and hippies. It was horrible. Convention was a riot, okay? People were getting killed. And we managed to get beyond that. Now we're sucked back into it. And I think everybody needs to take a chill pill, a Xanax on the right and left, both of them. Take a chill pill. And let's admit that we need to tone the vitriol down, and let's try to target more what we're trying to accomplish here, and not just say the other side's horrible. Ad hominem arguments are logical fallacies. Talk about what somebody really stands for. And let's do something about this other than just shoot people and continue to act stupid.
You know what, Dale? That word that you mentioned, vitriol, I think that would be a fantastic name for a pharmaceutical drug. I can see the commercials right now. Vitriol will take care of X, Y, and Z, and then probably about 30 or 40 side effects right afterwards. But nonetheless, we're going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Dale Schafer. And Dale has been an attorney since the Reagan administration. He has represented physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, cops, corrections officers, and for the last 25 years, he has specialized in cannabis law. He has served a 5-year federal prison sentence for helping medical marijuana patients and managed to save his law license. He's blunt. He doesn't smoke them because they're ratchet nasty. They turn your teeth yellow on top of other things, colors as well. But he is honest, and he's unconcerned with your opinion, public opinions, and everyone else's opinion for that matter. And he'll show you how you can defy gravity by pissing up a rope. That's right, as your favorite Tio Loco, and you can now find him at his own law office at the law office of none other than Dale Schafer.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is your favorite Tio Loco. Jenny's not here, but I'm still her favorite, full of shiticus.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about another topic that's going to get us in the weeds a bit here. But I would rather talk about these sensitive subjects and put your opinions on the table and discuss them than just have people calling names.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about Kamala here. She just wrote a book, okay, and we'll get into that a little bit and probably down the road. This is from Kyle Yeager yesterday from Marijuana Moment. Kamala Harris says Joe Rogan lied about her willingness to discuss marijuana on his podcast. And first of all, lied is a heavyweight term, okay? And what I found in most political discourse is that there's a kernel of truth and a whole lot of propaganda and bullshit that goes in with it, okay? And this last election, me as a lifelong Democrat, made me very angry and very disappointed, okay, that we have the 25th Amendment in place and all these people around Joe Biden just didn't particularly take advantage of any agency they had, step in and go, you can't find your ass with both hands here, dude, okay? Because when I watched that debate, I just thought this didn't happen yesterday, okay? This happened quite some way back, and no one really wanted to address the issue. And it's like, no, if you're an adult in the room, which Kamala was, supposedly, an attorney, the vice president, the 25th Amendment gives her and the cabinet the right to stand up and say, Joe, let's stop this. Didn't do that. Okay. But then we go into this dynamic. We've only got a short period of time. They decide we don't want to have a primary. We're just going to anoint Kamala, who's never won, a nationwide primary in her life. And then we've got Donald Trump willing to go on to whatever show, podcast, whatever. Let's talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about. Pick my brain. I'll tell you what I am. Okay. And Joe Rogan happens to be, I still think he's more of a moderate guy, but he talks about male issues, masculine issues, and, okay. Don't like that, don't listen to the guy. But people that followed him were pretty important. And so now we got this pissing match about whether Kamala was reluctant to just open up her cannabis history and whether Joe was demanding it or whether someone said, hey, we don't want to talk about that, stay away from it. I don't know, okay? As far as I'm concerned, for most politicians, they're lying when their mouth is moving. Okay? So I don't really believe any of this stuff. But it was an opportunity for Kamala to go on and just say, hey, what do you want to ask me about? Let's let people understand who I am. Okay? Now, from my standpoint, if I was advising her, I would keep her away as much as I could from just open-ended questions, because I'm an attorney. I'm a trial attorney. I've helped train a lot of trial attorneys in my day. And what I do with a trial attorney is I like to give them an opportunity to show me, how can you converse? How do you express yourself? Do you understand it? Do you read a room? Do you annoy people when you talk? When I watch Kamala Harris, and I've had these discussions with more than a couple of trial attorneys, like, dude, you might do okay as an appellate attorney, but stay the fuck out of the courtroom, because the way you talk and your mannerisms and stuff, you annoy the hell out of people. And that's my critique of Kamala Harris. Okay? I don't know inside her beltway if people talk to her like this, but when I'm involved in running a business and I got to make money, and I'm going to put somebody like that in front of a jury, and I'm probably going to lose, okay, I'm going to be a little more critical of the style that she uses. I'm not talking about her abilities and, I mean, her knowledge and her background presentation. So I'm not surprised she didn't go on these, because as just a spontaneous speaker, in my opinion, she's kind of annoying. Donald Trump's more, he's amusing to me, okay? And Kamala was annoying. Another one of their points here was Kamala's history with being a progressive DA in San Francisco in cannabis. Now, I didn't get into cannabis politics until like 1999 when the cops showed up and we had to figure this out. But at that point, Terrence Hallinan was the DA, and his position was, you know what? Fuck you. I am not going to bring a cannabis charge. Period. Done. Now, Dennis Perone had his dispensary there. Hallinan wouldn't touch him. Now, we talked about this before, where Dan Lundgren had to come in and fight him because Terrence Hallinan said, I won't do this. Kamala came in as soon as Terrence left, and she left the courtroom and she went into the political position here, and she was not as progressive or liberal about cannabis charges as Terrence was. Now, is that a bad thing? I don't know. I didn't get into these, but apparently there was close to 2,000 criminal convictions. Now, that could be, pleading guilty or getting a jury to convict you. We don't talk about arrests. All they talk about is about, 1,900 plus convictions of cannabis. These are misdemeanors and felonies. And in those days, it was a felony. Cannabis was a felony. So you could still get yourself in some serious trouble over this. But, according to her, only 45 went to prison. And I don't know whether that was 45 who were involved in other criminal activity and they just caught a cannabis charge. I don't know. It might be something to look at. Today, I'm not sure it really is all that important, because in California, they're not interested locally in prosecuting cannabis charges. It's a misdemeanor soaking wet. I'm not sure if this really helps us a lot. Okay? But I'm a firm believer that we need to have an after-action meetings. I was in the military, John, you were too. And after you have a battle plan, you go out next year, you come back and go, okay, how many do we lose? What were our casualties? What could we do better next time? I've seen nothing like that. Okay? And this last round of elections for the Democrats, sad to say, it buried them. They allowed, ideological factions inside their party to have way too much of things to say in forming a coalition, but they couldn't form a coalition to win an election. So I think all of these need to be put on the table, talk about how do we do this better next time. And as Kamala's book comes out, I'm sure we're going to get to chat about this more. But I'm sorry, she was an adult in the room. And my biggest criticism of what the Democrats did last time is, where in the fuck were the adults in the room? I'm a trad dad, okay? I raised a bunch of kids, especially boys. And at some point, you stand up and go, that sounds good, but we ain't doing that. No. Mm-hmm. There was nobody in the room saying that. There was nobody in the room who looked Joe in the eye and said, Joe, having trouble finding your ass with both hands. I think we need to have open up primaries. They didn't do that, okay? I think that mentality needs to be talked about. And this issue of whether or not, she was going to talk about cannabis on Joe's program, she didn't go on Joe's program. think if you're a Democratic candidate going forward, or any candidate going forward, you need to look for these podcasts, if you will, where they have antennas into different groups in this country, and go out and have honest discussions. You're going to take some punches to the face. You're probably going to deliver a few, but I think people have more respect for you if you show up and you talk to them.
Yep.
And this is Bill Maher. I mean, not that he's always right or agree with him all the time, but he just laments. I put out invitations for all these Democrats all the time, and none of them will show up. Republicans will show up. They'll take their lumps. They'll give some lumps. That needs to change. And I hopefully that talking about what Kamala did as the book comes out, there can be some more honest discussions in the political circles, and especially in the Democratic Party, of you screwed the pooch. How do we fix this next time? The people who are advocating doing it the same way, throw them off the train, get them the fuck out of here, fire them, and let's go talk to people and meet them where they are. Okay, I can go on forever, and I'm still pissed off about this. I'm gonna throw this back at you for what you guys have to say.
Well, Dale, you know, I'm sure that you realize that there's absolutely zero chance that the Democrats are going to divert their policy from their hardline stance on pretty much everything of how they want everything to work right now. So I don't have much hope that the Democrat Party is going to change their course in any way whatsoever from the previous election, and I think that's his wishful thinking, just right there, you know. And the fact that Kamala is saying that Joe Rogan lied, I think pretty much right there tells you that she's the one that, in my opinion, that is known for lying and gaslighting and whatnot. And the fact that Democrats don't go on to these podcasts, I think, is a big problem. I agree with you, but the problem is the Democrats don't have viable arguments to discuss the policies that they're trying to enact. It's either you accept this as what it is and you agree with us, or otherwise they're just calling you names and whatnot, and they don't have realistic arguments or the ability to really critically think and debate these policies out with people. And I think we saw that a lot of the time with Charlie Kirk when he would go to colleges and talk with liberals about these policies.
I wouldn't go that far. Like, yes,
I did. I'll go that far.
Or you can, and it's also true for the other side. I think, like, honestly, when I look at this, the strategist in me doesn't just. Oh yeah. I don't know if you have seen Rogan. I think about it, Dale, just how you thought about it, like military, but also athletic performance. Here's the deal. If this was a boxing match, the Republicans will take more hits from their base and stay in the ring longer. Mm-hmm. The Democrats will yank their fighter the second they take too many hits that disrupt the base. And so they keep yanking fighters and no one can get in for the long game. Here's the other thing. We saw, because I love news history. I was a former journalist. And I was a part of a millennial. So I saw the death of newspapers, the birth of, the rise of broadcast media and the use of that. And then the new direction that we're going with social news media. And we all called this, especially if you were on the show like a year ago, we were saying these social influence shows are going to carry weight. And Rogan was punching high at that time. It was a huge mistake to ask him to do a remote. Do not ask them to adjust their format, which has served at the level of multiple millions and is working. Don't ask them. This is the PR advice that I'm going to give you.
You're right. You're right about that, Shaun.
Yeah. Don't ask them to change the format. You make it work when the election is on the line. You didn't move the base. And the reason we're coming out now with a statement about he lied is because he took a few punches a couple weeks ago in the social realm. And they always launch a headline around that time to try to capitalize and ride that social wave. The problem is social wave conversion doesn't always translate to votes. So you're fucking up, because Rogan on YouTube and these kinds of programs are actually reaching other audiences beyond IG, beyond TikTok, beyond, and I love Gen Z, show up and vote. If you're gonna, if you're gonna just tap and that's it, it's not gonna work. on the other side, we see that there are some young Democrats and progressives who are really inspiring hope. James Tallarico did the interview on Rogan, and he held himself with composure and grace and has continued to do so and is inspiring so many. We don't even know who Colin Aldred is anymore. Like, they've got to show up in a different way. They keep running the same playbook, just like what Dale said, run the after action report. They keep running the same tactic and strategy and then wondering why they're getting blasted with a shotgun. It's predictable. Knock it off. And as far as Kamala and likability, I understand as a female, it's really fucking hard. I get my comments. I have my haters. It is what it is. I piss people off just because I speak with a level of directness and candor that if I was a dude, it probably wouldn't be an issue. That said, when Hillary says, I carry hot sauce in my purse and tries to appropriate culture, trying to connect. Or when Kamala does some events, yes, she did inspire so many. I'm not going to knock her. As a Black woman, she did motivate and inspire, and it was something, but it wasn't enough to bring people together because so much of it is focused on divisiveness, and so much of it is focused on this kind of snide arrogance that does not work for hardworking Americans because they're hardworking, dirt in the hands in the dirt kind of folks. They're turning wrenches and you're not moving them. And you have to stop with that level of arrogance the Democrats have. They don't even communicate with each other all the time because they're too busy being mean girls. And I'm not talking about Kamala as just her being a woman. I'm talking about the men, the females, all of them, all of it. It's enough. The reason that the Republicans don't implode is precisely what Dale shared, that they come to consensus and then they'll throw all of it behind, even if they don't agree, and privately will tell you, I don't know what the fuck is going on. This is insane and it's unhinged, but I'm going to keep moving in that direction because that's where the party's moving. They will unite and they take punches longer. The Democrats take a punch and they bitch out. What do you want? It's an endurance game.
It's an endurance game. That's interesting.
It frustrates me. It's simple principles. This is athletics. This is performance. This is politics. Like, it's simple shit.
It's kabuki theater, Shaun. We love it.
I I think most people agree that Kamala not going on Rogan probably cost her the election, right? But had she gone on there and he asked her some real concise questions, that probably would have cost her the election too, because she's just not a great public speaker. She's not good under pressure. She's not good being asked concise questions. Everything she spoke when she was campaigning was very general, followed by her little chuckles and giggles. And Rogan would have pushed the envelope with her, and it's easy for her to say a year later, oh yeah, whatever, he lied about this or that. Like, she didn't even go on the show. I don't want to like overly support Rogan, but I don't think he has any intention. He doesn't have a reason to lie. He was pretty transparent, and she didn't refute any of the other things he said where, she only wanted to do it remote. She wanted to pre-choose the questions, pre-select.
Yeah.
That's not Rogan's format. That's not the show you're going on. So it would have cost her the election if she went on there and totally crashed and burned anyway. So either way, I think she was trying to deflect a threat by not going on the show, and now she's trying to cover her ass. But
CYA.
I also don't think it's really news, to be honest.
I thought it was phenomenal news. That the fact of the matter is that she's still living in Lululemonville. You know what I'm saying, Chris? Like she still thinks, hey, you know what? I'm gonna call out Joe Rogan because I'm gonna say that he lied, and now all of a sudden the American people are gonna come and side with me because I'm saying he's a liar. And like, no, sorry, we're not buying it. We know that you were a fraud from the beginning. And,
well, it's kind of this bigger picture of people politicizing not only like Rogan or Theo Vaughn, but all these alternative media hosts that are really just comedians and people asking questions and YouTube personalities, much like we all are right now. and to put those people into, you know, this traditional lexicon of politics is also wrong. And I think that's what Kamala's playing into right now. Is there's this like big push on the left to hate anything that Rogan says because he's spoken out against vaccines or anything. That it's like she's trying to drum up support again for something by like saying something negative against Rogan, and all these people are gonna be like, yeah, we hate Rogan too. And it's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. It's you know, Joe Rogan's a comedian. He's way before he was an interviewer, way before he was into politics. And I think he's great at interviewing people. He asks really good questions. And I think she would have just crumbled under that pressure. And this is just her way of, you know, a year later of trying to respond to it.
How come no one calls out Kamala Harris for her lies? That's what I want to know.
People call her out. I think, hold on, but to your point, Chris, about not having politics in these conversations, I think that would be a mistake, because I think the Democrats
I'm not saying to not have politics in these conversations. It's important to discuss politics, but I'm saying to over politicize all of these figures that are really, at the end of the day, celebrities, comedians, you know, and they can fall on either side of the line, but like to throw them into mainstream politics as like, we're all for him, we're all against him. I never saw Rogan as that, you know, but a lot of people have like painted him completely red now because he had Trump on the show, or, you know, but he's a pretty objective guy in my opinion.
I think I totally agree with that. Go ahead, Shaun.
That's what I'm trying to say is that the way that the needle is moving. So there were two elements: is that the Democrats do have more influence over certain media outlets that have had at least a level of pull with social platforms, and that was because of broadcast news. Opening it up to the forum reminds me of like the ancient Greeks, where we did actually discuss politics and all of this, and comedy. Everyone, we were all there, because that's actually how humans get shit done on the real level. Is we've got to have that level of connection. We've got to have that level of dialogue and conversation. The problem is, of course, we can't have, you know, a savior complex where we make someone something that they're not. I think the Democrats would be wise to understand that about their people. Like, they need to actually tap back into the public, because what a lot of PR agencies and campaigns do is that they see what's working and trending at that moment, and they write it like it's a fucking TikTok thing or something. They're just as guilty as any marketing client. We all know this shit. And they hop on trends. They think it's going to be the thing that saves them, because they don't have any actual need, and they are not in touch with the public. And that's why, again, I go back to candidates like James Tallarico, who he is. And he's moving people, and he's bringing folks, he's drawing crowds. And there's an element of that, you're right, Kamala completely lacks. But I don't want to be so fast to say that that jump from broadcast news media, the traditional broadcast news media, especially after it was ESPNified, I don't want to say that that jump to platforms like Rogan, Diary of a CEO, like they all do the circuit. You just have to pay attention. It's a circuit. And I think that that would actually be more appropriate than just broadcast news, because if you can build a platform and you can garner an audience that you can build trust with, this is going to have much more impact on that news and information level with the public than broadcast ever could, especially with the volume of distrust that has been sown, and now with the repercussions of facing FCC lawsuit or it's very expensive to do broadcast news. So I'm looking forward to the new wave of media, but I'm also keenly aware that these algorithms can be influenced, controlled, bought, and paid for, and we need to be very smart about this as a people. Hopefully it is more of a forum and less of what we've had in the past, but you know, we always tend to repeat cycles. I hear you, Chris. I just don't want us to get stuck in
the algorithms for sure are contrived and can be bought and paid for, but I think the politicians are probably easier to buy and pay for than the algorithms. Even the algorithms are starting to have a life of their own. They're almost sentient, and the politicians are more like robots.
Dale, are you going to buy her book? Are you going to buy her book, Dale?
No. I'm just sick and tired of having, especially Democratic candidates, who wouldn't say shit if they had a mouthful of it. I mean, come on. I'm looking for, in your thesaurus in your mind, there's a list of 10 words I can say other than what I really want to say. Just fucking tell us how you feel. Okay? Yeah. And if you're afraid to say, look, that's horse shit, and then back up what you have to say. I mean, I have middle-class family. And when we sit down, I have a doctorate degree. I know all the goddamn words to use. I'm blunt. I'm to the point. And it's like, if I think something's bullshit, I'm going to tell you I think it's bullshit, and here's why. We do not have that in these candidates. Donald Trump, as much as people may like him or dislike him, will tell you that's bullshit, and here's why I think that. And people resonate with that. Go down to a bar and sit down and have a beer with somebody and talk about the football game. And then, okay, now what do you guys want to see the government do? There are politicians out there who are not stupid. They're going to do the after action themselves. And the Tallarico you're talking about, he figured out, hey, I need to show up on these sites. Yep. I need to go there and have an honest discussion and cuss every once in a while, tell them you're full of shit or I agree with that or whatever. Okay? Be an honest person. Don't be snooty. Don't think that because I have this education, I'm going to give you the appropriate word. Fuck you. That's free speech infringement right there. I'll say what the fuck I want to say. You don't like my words? I warn people. Hey, trigger warning. Don't be around me if you got thin skin.
That's right.
Because I'm going to probably piss you off, okay?
That's right.
But I don't care. I want you to tell me things that you think might piss me off so we can have an honest discussion. We have these stupid-ass academic discussions. Just are a bunch of words that go absolutely nowhere. And that needs to be fixed. PR that was running the Democrats needs to be fired and hire a new company because they screwed the pooch.
Fair enough. And on that, we got to roll into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Every legend has a humble beginning.
In world news, leaders are gathering today for the annual summit.
I want to tell you something, Che. The government is watching us through the television.
Oh, John.
Look, right there. They're trying to hack into my TV box.
We're still not able to hack into the TV box, sir.
Ha! But they can't.
I've rebuilt the entire electronic system, and it sends and receives signals through quantum phase space. They'll never get in. Engage target.
In other news, local authorities are investigating a series of strange atmospheric phenomena reported by residents.
Ma'am, we're with the federal government. We need to ask you some questions.
John?
Is there a problem? We've been trying to penetrate your TV box for over 6 months.
I told you they were trying to watch us through the TV, but you didn't believe me.
We can't get in, and to be frank, we have no idea what you've created.
Yeah, that's the point. It's called privacy. You know what the Fourth Amendment guarantees?
All we know is that we can't get inside. We want to know if you can create one for us.
QUX. Even the government wants one.
We are back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. We just need a couple more subscribers to hit that 6,000 subscriber mark. So please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure that you do smash that subscribe button. As well as all the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highat9news.com. And if you haven't had a chance yet, make sure you check out our 9/11 special featuring Congressman Kurt Weldon of Pennsylvania and Congressman Dana Rohrabacher from California, as we go into all the things that happened and didn't happen on 9/11.
Introducing QUX Pay, or simply the Pay app,
where you can pay like it's nobody's business.
Because it isn't. It's what everyone's been clamoring for. It's finally here.
Secure every payment. Your data stays private. QUX will never sell your data for profit, period. Pay friends, family, contacts instantly. No hidden fees, no limits. Spend on the move.
With this patented technology, you can use debit, credit, bank transfers, cash cards, and even crypto completely offline.
Amounts transferred through the Pay app reach their destination instantly. Transfers in a flash, as quick as sending a text. No more waiting around like crypto. Are you ready for the future of payments? The state of the art for money is finally here.
Data privacy and security protocols trusted by militaries and banks worldwide. QUX Pay, the Pay app.
Available as an app and point of sale system, personal and corporate accounts available. Go to QUXPay.com and start using the Pay app today.
And we are back. And we are going to roll right into Miss Shaun Salvaje. She's a mediator that'll keep your ass out of court if you're trying to think you get the funds to get into court. She's a mom as well as a veteran who proudly served our country. That's right, it is none other than Miss Shaun Salvaje.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes.
My story today comes out of Texas. So yesterday, some good news. For now, okay, it always comes with a caveat, but some good news. The Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission has issued emergency rules that directly impact how consumable hemp products will be sold in certain businesses. Only really an age gate yesterday. I did wake up yesterday morning with a pang of anxiety that I had maybe missed. You know, there's so many, sometimes they move pieces without your awareness. And I'm still definitely a little bit not traumatized, but still got a little shell shock from the 2 special sessions and how things were moving during this special session. So I'm here to tell Texas, take a deep breath. Woosah, friends. Okay, for now, we have some emergency rules that will last at least 180 days. So what happened? Effective September 23rd, 2025, TABC adopted emergency rules under Chapter 51. These rules ban the sales of consumable hemp products to anyone under 21 in any business with a TABC license. And this is an important distinction. So that's bars, restaurants, liquor stores, convenience stores, delivery services. But retail operators, you are best advised to follow suit. And of course you would want to, after we lobbied so much this past session and told them that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so do it. Because they're going to come for you otherwise. They also require mandatory ID checks for every sale of consumable hemp product. If a TABC license holder violates the rules, the license will be automatically canceled. No suspension, no fine option, and enforcement begins October 1st, 2025. So this is an age gate for any infused beverages that we have in bars, which we do already have in Texas. The age gate is good for that, and TABC supervises about 60,000 accounts on that level. So because of the liquor license, right? So this is really for them to make sure their licensees are covered, and it kind of explains why that was so important up front in the early parts of our regular session. Like, how did those beverage guys get that influence so quickly? Yes, we knew it was the alcohol industry, but also now realizing that TABC has to think about it from a regulatory perspective as well. And they're responsible for those accounts. So Governor Abbott has issued an Executive Order GA56, which we were all talking about last week, which pushed TABC to act, and they were citing youth access at the beginning. What we have, the link in for your story, is the actual, I gave you guys the rules from TABC, so you could read it straight from the horse's mouth. They're also posted up on IG if you want to scroll through. Focus of the arguments is really on youth access to hemp as a public health and safety issue. And TABC is framing this as a means to protect public safety, and TABC licensed businesses that sell hemp products from inadvertently providing them to minors. So what counts as a consumable hemp product, though? And this is important for now because they defaulted to the current dishes definition. So, but that it is defined by dishes, and dishes will also begin a rulemaking process that will impact retailers. So as defined by dishes, which is Texas's Department of Safety and Health Services, any hemp product made for consumption which is food, drinks, oils, vapes, cosmetics, topicals, all of it. Anything except for that hemp seed that they were considering, you know, an SB6 under Charles Perry, which, you know, federal, we all know the hemp seed that you find in your grocery store is a food product. All of that, anything but that, so your food, drinks, oils, topicals, vapes, etc., that's all hemp, as long as it remains under 0.3% total THC. Enforcement of what total THC will be is yet to be determined. But for right now, folks were asking in the comments yesterday, so is it a win? And I was like, a win is a win. For right now, move. You know, make your moves. But be smart about it and have your shit all the way together and compliant, and talk to your retailers. Make sure you guys are following this 21 up rule, because yes, it is through TABC, the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, but dishes will probably mirror this, if not enforce a more stringent rule. So let's be good shepherds. Let's be good stewards. Follow suit. Okay. The rulemaking process, let's break it down, because I did wake up in a sweat. Like I said earlier, I had my head down for teacup licensing and thought this would only be age gate, but then you wake up that yesterday morning, you have that panic moment and you're like, is it only age gate? Did I miss something? Has someone moved something and I'm not aware? Because that does happen. It won't happen this time, not the way it does for the legislature. It doesn't mean that they aren't already writing rules without the public. They definitely are. But the rulemaking process, TABC, using their emergency rule powers, these rules are good for up to 180 days. In the meantime, they'll launch a formal rulemaking process where they'll have a proposed rule, and then they have to open it for public comment, and they'll have final adoption of rule. This one, because it was emergency, that's why it was so easy to pass. Dishes is expected to propose its own rules soon. And Dishes has already signaled that it's working on age limit and testing updates for consumable hemp program. This process, however, will be slower. And the proposal, it'll go in the Texas Register. You'll have your 30-day comment again, and then final adoption. So these are two agencies. These are two processes, kind of the same, mirror the same way. But TABC is acting quicker under this emergency rule authority, which means we still have time to influence what the conversation that we have at Dishes and show up for testimony. Looking ahead, we know that these emergency rules are short term, but they will cover us for at least 180 days. And I don't think Dishes will move all that fast. There is also the potential, you know, we had these rulemaking, they were supposed to make rules years ago, and then they didn't. I don't think that's going to happen now, because this has become a national headline, and one that has the attention of the Trump administration. But it's progress. There is also the other headline circulating about how Charles Perry is trying to influence this, and he will, and so should we. Dishes is expected to propose its own rules soon. They've already signaled they're working on the age limit and testing updates. This will be a slower process. The emergency rules are short term, and you should expect Dishes to draft its own rules for shops. It's the start of a two-agency framework. Hopefully we can, in the next legislative session, if we don't revisit with special session in between, we can roll those two into some sort of Texas Hemp Council or Texas Hemp and Cannabis Commission, because we all know this is a much more complicated issue than just delegating and trying to hand it off to TABC and Dishes. Even their own agents are very worried about this and a bit overwhelmed, though they feel capable, of course. So the bottom line for Texas retailers who are feeling, you know, a little after all the waves from this legislative session, I think for now you can rest easy. We've got 180 days at least on this. Anything that they schedule from Dishes will have public comment. That will be your opportunity to speak your piece, show up. This one is not going to be as long as the ledge, because they're making these rules fast this time around. Although Dishes could find themselves rather busy and you know, not move it until after elections. That's always a possibility. Welcome to the bureaucracy, friends. But that's what we got. A nice, easy,
Shaun,
deep breath.
Shaun, what does Dishes stand for?
Dishes, Department of Safety and Health Services, I believe. I'm kind of blanking out.
But how is it pronounced Dishes then? Because that would be DS.
I know, Texas.
That'd be like D's. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Okay.
It took me a good bit to be like, what's everyone talking about when they're like dishes, and then I was like, y'all, okay, well, this is what we say.
So then what's the actual abbreviation? The DS what?
DSHS.
DSHS. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
I know.
I was very, very, very confused by that.
Other things we pronounce. I know we don't want to talk about ATX in Austin. Do we want to talk about Manchaca? No.
I don't know about all that. Dale's shaking his head. Dale, what do you think about all this dishes?
Well, I'm not familiar with all the enabling statutes that gives these bureaucracies the rights to come up with these regulations. This is a process that it looks like they just threw some emergency in there that people get used to, show me your ID. If you're not 21 or older, you don't get to buy any of these products. Once it's in place, it tends to be harder to take it away than it is to put it in place. And if you do it with an executive order, basically, governor says, hey, put these in place. They write them, put them in place. They're emergency. They last for 6 months. In the meantime, you let people know it's common sense to be checking someone's ID. Now we got to figure out what does it mean by total cannabinoids or total THC, or whatever term they're going to use to identify what part of the plant they're concerned about. That's where a lot of the pissing matches take place. It seems like this is some things we've done here in California, but the real problem is to change the enabling statutes that you can open the industry up and then allow regulations which make the industry work rather than trying to rein it in and then maybe let a little exception happen there. Did it work? Okay. Oh, let's move a little further. That's how regulations tend to lead to rules. But for God's sakes, it's slow. It's torturous. Shaun, God love you for being able to watch this stuff. Because here in California, whenever I pay close attention to what the legislature does, it makes me nauseous. Got to go smoke a joint or something because it just fucking makes me nauseous to watch it. The games getting played, but this is not a bad thing. I mean, I don't think any of us want people to go in and buy, under a minor, if you will. In this case, it's 21. So I don't think that's real controversial. It should have been done a hell of a long time ago.
Exactly. I saw there was an article saying, that shop owners are complaining that now they can only serve people 21 and over. It's like those should have been the only people that you were serving in the first place. Like where's your moral turpitude at? Like what is going on out there, Texas? Like you guys are supposed to be, living on that high ground. You know what I mean? In that fully righteous type of mindset out there. And so I was a little surprised to see that some operators were saying that and complaining about that. But, that's neither here nor there. Chris, you have any thoughts on this?
I just want to real quick correct. It's the Department of State Services. I told you I was hitting that watermelon Z a little
Okay.
hard.
That's all right. It's all right.
I just feel like it's all this back and forth in Texas over hemp I'm with Dale. It's nauseating. It's numbing, really. It gets to a point where you hear about it so much and no progress has really been made, this back and forth. And there's always this little glimmer of hope, like, oh, are they going to just finally open it up? And then it's like, oh, well, no. So this guy interpreted it this way. And, it's hard for me to stay up with everything in Texas because, I've never lived in Texas. I don't know all the acronyms for all the state agencies. I have a lot of friends in Texas. I have a cousin that lives there, and I want them all to have access to clean, high-quality cannabis. And it's like a lot of just tail chasing and self-importance and, just bureaucracy that, it's I don't know what to comment on it this week. Every week is something new with Texas. And I usually have a lot more to say, but it's almost like they're doing it on purpose. So you're just so numb from it that you're like, okay, what are they doing now? That's a fair point. Back to this, back to access. We're going to raid the shops. We're not going to raid the shops.
They're going to raid the shops. Everybody should be smart. That will be happening. But if you're not aggravating or suing them, or maybe if you are suing them, you're a little
maybe
more
if you're maybe if you're suing them, then you won't be getting raided because you know what I'm saying, it's kind of a conflict of interest right there. You know what I mean?
knows? Because it is Texas. It gets real crazy out here. Sometimes you think the law is going to hold up, and it doesn't.
You know what I'm saying, Dale?
I do think I appreciate and I'll wrap it up fast. I just wanted to say, Chris, I appreciate, you relating to the ups and downs and people are really going through the rickets out here. The business owners are really looking for that shot of hope, and it's been up, down, on all around. But I do think what I will say to Texas retailers and folks out in other states, legal states and hemp states, is it does open the lens very wide to how federal policy will probably be shaped. Because you see how certain coalitions do form, to Dale's earlier points, and then you also see how good ideas catch like fire. So you got to make sure you show up, okay? They're always looking for the next good idea. They love to jump on that shit.
Most of America is California, Texas, Florida, New York, right? So this is where policy is incubated and scaled up on the federal level. So Texas is the second most populous state. And their definition of hemp has certainly drifted over the last 2 years or so. So to see where this ends up and how we're going to revise the USDA farm bill, how everything's going to play out of this, how even rescheduling all of this could certainly be impacted by whatever Texas decides to do with this. But it's mind numbing. It makes me want to go eat a 200 milligram gummy right now, a hemp gummy.
A hemp gummy. Well,
through the roof. I'm ready for when can I take a tea break? When are we gonna settle down?
Well, hemp, hooray, and weed for the people, you guys. And on that, we're gonna roll into our final commercial, and we're gonna be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Test it. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Back, you guys. We are back. Stop whatever you're doing. We are going to roll right into Mr. Christopher Vaos. He is a seasoned cannabis industry professional with over 15 years of experience in commercial cultivation. He has led large-scale indoor, greenhouse, and outdoor operations across various U.S. markets, specializing in cultivation optimization, team leadership, and cost-efficient scaling. With a background in engineering and a data-driven, science-based approach, Christopher consistently delivers strong results in plant health, productivity, and operational efficiency. That's right, it is none other than Mr. Christopher Vaos.
How you guys doing? This next story is from my old home state, Colorado. I spent 11 years there, and this is about Colorado marijuana prices keep falling, tying a record low. A 25% reduction in growers did not stop legal weed prices from hitting rock bottom. Colorado's current marijuana industry retraction hasn't helped wholesale prices go up, with the cost per pound dropping to a record low this summer, according to new data from the State Department of Revenue. Released once per quarter, the Colorado Marijuana AMR measures median prices of various wholesale marijuana categories, despite the inclusion of average in the name, and projects prices for the next quarter. On September 10th, the DOR released the latest average market rates, information that sets the level of excise taxes that growers must pay through the end of 2025. The AMR for pounds of harvested flower, which is largely used for smoking, has been on a steady decline since 2021, when prices hit over $1,700. Current DOR records have the AMR of Colorado marijuana pounds at just under $649, which ties the summer of 2023 the lowest number since the state began tracking of legal weed prices. The market saw some improvement in 2024 with the AMR for pounds of marijuana reaching 750, but prices quickly fell back in the mid 600 range by 2025. Even worse, news for growers this year, there was a 25% drop in the number of licensed marijuana cultivations from September 2023 to September 2025, as the number of recreational dispensaries in Colorado stayed flat, indicating that less competition hasn't helped push up wholesale prices. Dispensary sales figures have been sliding in Colorado for about 4 years, too, going from over $2.2 billion in 2021 to just over $1.4 billion in 2024, a 36% decrease and 7-year low, according to the DOR. Colorado has seen several high-profile marijuana brands leave the state and other businesses close in 24 and 25, including a cut above, hey, a buddy of mine used to own that, La Eagle, Verde, Dab Logic, and Maggie's Farm, and the original ownership behind Terrapin Care Station. Several other notable dispensary chains such as Lightshade and Good Chemistry have also closed and sold locations after reporting declining sales. Okay, so my personal opinion on this, having lived in Colorado for a long time, it was one of the first states. And, Colorado got to enjoy the big boom of early cannabis tourism. Everybody flocked there. People would come from every other state, even California, just to buy weed legally, just to, partake. And they were a pioneer, but that can only last so long. And, Colorado only has about 5.5 million people. It's not a very populous state. So it can't really support that much of a domestic market without that outside tourism. And so this is fairly inevitable. As legalization spread, people have access in their home states. People aren't traveling just to smoke weed anymore. So, that early glut of everyone getting licensed, everyone trying to produce, it just can't last. And what do we have? Recreational in over 20 states. I think it's 24 states now. Close to half of Americans have some form of legal access. They're not going to fly to Colorado. And the skiing in Colorado is just way too expensive. You can go in way cheaper places to go skiing. I think someone told me you can get a flight to Switzerland now and a ski pass for what it costs to get a ski pass in Breckenridge. So you're just not gonna support the same market the same way. And I have a couple friends that did survive the mess in Colorado. I got a couple friends that didn't, that went on to greener pastures, either went back to California or trying to fight it out on the East Coast. But it's just not a competitive market anymore in the sense of there being a lot of consumers to share. So even some of the legacy people like Maggie's Farm just have not been able to survive. And it just goes to show that this happens in almost every state early on, that you have a large amount of enthusiasm, a lot of licenses, and it just leads to overproduction, saturation of markets, and then price crashes. And it's very hard for most people to survive that. And a lot of people that get into these licenses in the beginning are really looking for fast money, for a quick exit. They're not legacy producers that are in it for the long haul, that are doing it for the love, that are doing it for craft. They're just doing it to get rich and get out. And it's really hard to time that. And this is just proof of that. What do you guys think?
I think you're exactly right on that. And I mean, and at the same time, I'm not surprised that Colorado has had such a depreciation in its price. I mean, you can only go so long with those high numbers, and you know what I mean? So I'm not surprised on that. At the same time, too, it's not like Colorado was known for like super crazy high end stuff. You know what I mean? Like their hash is really good, but as far as the flower, a lot of it is dry, brittle, and you know what I'm saying? Like goes bad extremely fast, and it's not because of the growers, so per se. It's necessarily more because of the climate that they're in, and so you can't really.
My greenhouse in Colorado, and it would be 3% humidity.
Yeah,
I'd be like, is that really right? It's really that dry out there.
Yeah, and so that plays a big toll on the overall production and quality of the cannabis, because in essence it creates this like super fast, speeded up drying drying process, and you really can't rush nature in that, and you need to keep a lot of that moisture content in there during that time so that it can dry and cure properly, and you can have enough water content in there to mix with the acids turning into sugars to make that sweet aroma and smell and everything else like that. And it's a real.
Jason, you made a good point. That's kind of an aside point that I've want to talk about that I've mentioned in the past. Colorado and Washington were both states early on to legalize at the same time. Washington did not allow home growing, where Colorado did.
Yep.
And a lot of early innovation, things like rosin, some of the first great vape carts, all that came out of Colorado, where Washington actually has almost twice the amount of people as Colorado. But because they didn't allow home growing, I think it halted a lot of innovation. And we're at a time now where a lot of the East Coast states, a lot of the new markets aren't allowing for the same innovation, because they're not allowing the small guys to experiment in their basements and backyards anymore.
Well, there's one other part of that whole equation too, Chris, to come to that conclusion, is the fact of how Washington totally botched their medical program when they went to adult use. Is they basically they didn't license any of their medical pre-existing operators, and they said, hey, nope, you guys all have to get an adult use license. There is basically going to be no more medical, and you guys are basically out of the picture. And when they all should have been grandfathered in some way or of another to at least be able to compete in the industry that they helped create.
That's insane that they did that. That's awful. Everyone should learn from that. I think, to Chris's point, with the earlier states, we're all like still drawing and learning, and that's how we can hopefully, I don't know if we'll ever have a full federal policy, but at least we'll be highly informed when we get there and can influence that conversation as much as possible. And then on the state level, we've all built off of each other's blocks. But also, to your point about hash and flower, like, I couldn't help but hear Nicole West in my head, OG. And that's when we get to a place with deschedule, it'll be really cool to see how different regions respond with different levels of expertise. This typically has happened in the legacy market because of the level of outlawness. You got to be creative. But now we're seeing it happen in the market as we're climbing towards normalization. And while it's really sad to see businesses go out, and I definitely am all about giving the best fight to create opportunity for good retailers, open retail. And Colorado, when my dispo experience in Colorado just felt a little too clinical, but we want to do that, but there's going to be some attrition. You're going to see some losses too. And that's just a normal market sign. We're building an industry. It's going to bottom out. It's going to have your boom bust cycles. And then it's on us, like those who really want to be in for the long term, to watch those cycles and then know this is when we're going to pivot this way. This is when we're going to pull back in this area. And this is where we're going to put our chips forward, prepping for that interstate commerce. I know everybody has to do it through each separate state for now, but the other thing with Colorado is, to Jason's point with the dry flower, that's with web sales, it's going to hurt you on the retail side. It's going to, if you can't produce the product that the people actually want. And so lean into what you do well. And hopefully we can get to a place where these conversations between the industry experts and then market regulators becomes more fluid, so they can understand what will actually build them a healthy market. I know that Colorado has used a lot of those resources to fund public education. I would hate to see that also bottom out, because then they're going to make a move like California and try to grab for more when it's already struggling. And
it's already happened. I mean, I think one of the big mistakes Colorado made early on was, if you look at the history of a lot of MSOs, they started in Colorado, and it wasn't Colorado money. It wasn't Colorado natives that did that. But, Colorado was this incubator state and allowed a lot of entities. But then, like every state, they had a bunch of stupid rules. They pushed for vertical integration early on, but they still had residency requirements for license owners. And I want to say it was around 2014, 2015, right in that era where they just suddenly opened up outside investment, and all these big Wall Street guys just came in and just picked everybody up. And there was just massive corporate consolidation. and you built these behemoth companies that, now you have the Curaleafs and everyone that the TerrAscends and all these that came out of that era, and a lot of that was funded and organized from that era of Colorado. And I remember 2016 going out to the Emerald Cup in California as this Colorado guy, and all the Cali, NorCal Humboldt bros were like giving me shit, like, "Oh, you're Colorado, you guys ruined the industry." And I was like, "Oh, you wait, California, just wait until you guys go wreck. You'll see how bad you'll fuck it up too." And it's not the local producers, it's not the growers, it's not even the consumers' fault. It's the regulators and the big money. And they're generally in cahoots, and they'll go to one market to the next. And it just started in Colorado, and it allowed them to build enough profit and momentum that, it's like the blob. It just went and just swallowed everything up from that point on. And it has brought us to this point of, I think I read a statistic recently that nationally, I think around 50% of all cannabis operators in all states combined are MSO owned. So about half of it are owned by a small handful of companies, and the rest are mom and pops. And how long are they going to last? Every market has their expiration on that.
Yep. Very, very true. Dale, any thoughts on this before we move on, Dale?
Well, I warn my clients and anybody who listens to me that at some point this is going to be like alcohol, and these current thoughts of how to make money in this industry are going to have to be redone, because cannabis in flower form will be a commodity. It'll be produced in areas where it's more favorable. You won't be able to afford the extra electricity for the indoor grows, except in specialty products. And, I think there's industry statistics out there. The average bottle of wine was like $6 or $8. And so if you're going to do some comparisons to alcohol, flower will be fairly low priced as a commodity with some specialties in there. The same thing with hash, other concentrates. These products will be commoditized. So there'll be higher volume, smaller profit margins. That's the long-term play. Between here and there is so much uncertainty. And coming in this market, you had to leverage yourself with high risk, high interest loans to get into this market based upon old prices where you're getting $2,000 to $4,000 a pound for a product, multiple dollars per gram to produce it. That's going to be gone. Okay, right now, if you get $1 a gram for producing this stuff, probably consider yourself lucky. And how do you do that? And it's a dark cloud on the horizon, because there's so much vitriol right now amongst everybody about legacy versus new people coming in, that we have to transition to a mindset where this is beyond the prohibition mentality, and that's not happening today or tomorrow. But once we get there, this will be an entirely new market, and the legacy people will have to fight to get their name out there to be able to have premium products, but the rest of it's going to be commoditized.
Yep.
And
exactly
so all
right.
my friends who are out there trying to hustle to get $1 to $2 a gram right now for their product in the raw is, that's going to be gone. I'm not sure what it's going to mean, but just, short, medium, and long term right now, we talk a lot about the short term problems. We don't even know what to do about medium, and long term is going to be a completely different market.
And that's a great point, Dale. And I remember Elliot from Catalyst making that point, that there's really two different markets, right? There's a commodity market and a brand market. And if you can create a brand, it's very much like in wine, and I've worked in wine years ago as well. Like, you're either selling grapes, bulk wine, or you're selling a label. And those are two very separate markets. And some people are just bulk producers, and some people are, selling a brand, selling a label, selling a whole personality around that. And I think that's going to happen with cannabis. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of regionality also with these MSOs. Everyone's trying to produce the same thing, the same SOPs everywhere. Jason, I will disagree with you with what you said in the comments. I do think there's actually some great growing climates in Colorado, and they can produce some great cannabis. But most of the places where these MSOs set up, like Park County or most of these places in eastern Colorado are not ideal climates. They're just
you must have taken one of Sean's dreamer pills today, Chris, apparently, or something like that, because but Shaun, go ahead. Let's make it quick. We got to get to the last story.
No. I'm good. I just was wondering how I can be on both sides of the fence, but
you can't. You have to pick one. You can't pick on one side. You can't just sit on the top of the fence and just straddle it.
I come in cranky, but I'm also an eternal optimist. I don't know. I'm an eternal optimist with a sight, I suppose. I think what Chris is saying, it's like when Dill, it sounds like farming. And then we have to understand in America, once we do have a commodity, it does kind of become a thing that the whole nation looks at, because we export globally. So
one day
we'll see. Like, I want to grow in that space, but also we have to protect those craft growers who are going to be a little more agile and able to take risks.
You just can't protect everybody, Shaun. You just can't protect everybody. It's just not reality, okay? They have to do things. They have to do things to protect themselves and insulate themselves and and be sharper and ahead of the curve. And capitalism doesn't work like that, because we only the strong survive and the cream rises to the top.
I do agree with that. You do have to stay on top of your shit, watch the market, pay attention to how things are growing, know your history, so you can predict what the next cycle is going to be.
And you have to be able to market yourself well, because if you want to maintain your price point or whatnot, you have to be able to market and get to the masses what differentiates you from everybody else. And then you have to control that market space. That's really what it ultimately comes down to. If the craft markets if these craft growers that you say want to, they have to learn how to market themselves. They can't just be like, oh, my product is so da-da-da-da-da, and I'm a craft grower and everyone should buy me because I'm a craft grower. No, get the fuck out of here.
To protect them regulatorily, we have to make sure that the rules are set up.
You can't protect them regulatory. They tried to do that with social equity, and look what a flop that was, Shaun.
Social equity. I'm talking about reasonable licensing.
I'm just saying, it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. What you're saying, it's all the same thing. It's going to play out the same way.
Reasonable licensing fees. Jason,
it's the same thing. The same thing.
Hold on, reasonable licensing fees, and then also with that craft market space, you have to be smart. You have to be a good entrepreneur, and you have to realize if you're going craft, regional dominance is going to be your thing. So get plugged into your community. Like, it's the same foundation principles you can apply across every industry.
If you don't plug into your community, Shaun, you're going to have to get a plug in your community.
That is true, and I'm sure there's folks who are available for that.
Yes. Well, I actually have some good news for you guys today to end the show on. Are you guys ready for some good news? We've had a lot of crazy stories today. It's been a fun show. But St. Louis County drops a bill to ban unregulated intoxicating cannabis products, you guys. Look at that. Someone's finally getting it. Missouri's Marijuana Trade Association urged council members to allow state lawmakers to address the issue. A St. Louis County bill aimed at preventing intoxicating cannabis products from being sold outside of dispensaries is dead after melting away resistance from retailers and distributors. St. Louis County Councilwoman Lisa Clancy, the bill's sponsor, dropped the bill during the council's Tuesday meeting. In a quote, after engaging with stakeholders and hearing a lot of thoughtful discussion between stakeholders and also the council, I have come to the conclusion that there is not a pathway at this time or a consensus to move forward on this, Clancy said during the meeting. Clancy said she's hopeful state legislators will address the very serious public health and safety issues when they reconvene in January. And state law prohibits marijuana products from being sold outside of dispensaries, and however, thousands of gas stations and other stores statewide currently sell THC products such as gummies, beverages, and vapes that get people high the same way that marijuana does. The difference, producers say, is the products are made from hemp. And lab and cannabis experts testified last week before the council that there's no way to ensure these products aren't made from black market marijuana without a track and trace system like the ones that's required from the regulated marijuana market. While some liquor stores, including Total Wine, have self-imposed age restrictions on purchasing the beverages, there's no government agency regulating the products, and that includes who can buy them. For the past 3 years, Missouri lawmakers have debated legislation that would put all THC products under the same regulatory framework as marijuana, and the proposals were met by fierce opposition, particularly from associations representing convenience stores, hemp companies, and veterans. This past spring, Republican State Senator Nick Schroyer of Defiance offered a proposal that carved out an exemption for low-dose THC beverages, which have been sold in Missouri's bars and liquor stores for 7 years. And it still required things like high-dose gummies and THCA flower and vapes to be sold in only marijuana dispensaries. But Schroyer's bill was filibustered by State Senator Carla May to the rescue and other St. Louis Democratic senators who argued that it would create a monopoly for the marijuana industry and harm small businesses. Hemp naturally has very little THC, the intoxicating component mostly associated with marijuana, but that potency can be increased with some science. And while marijuana from seed to final product is governed by a state regulatory regime, intoxicating hemp products have been completely unregulated by any governmental agency since 2018 when Congress passed the 2018 Farm Bill that legalized hemp. If enacted, Clancy's bill would have effectively banned those products in Missouri's largest county, and Clancy dropped the bill just before another council member was going to offer a substitute draft. And earlier in the day, the Missouri Cannabis Trade Association earned Clancy and the other council members to drop their bills. In a quote, "We appreciate the efforts of local elected officials in St. Louis County to prevent more area kids from buying and using these unregulated products," said Andrew Mullins, executive director of the Mo-Canna Trade. "But it's becoming clearer that it's Missouri state government that needs to lead the way on this public safety issue." Mullins asked the council to withdraw the measure and join the association in Jefferson County to lobby for regulations, and they say, "While a patchwork of regulations and bans across Missouri's 114 counties is currently better than the current Wild West reality," he said, "it would give patients, teachers, and law enforcement the peace of mind they need to hold the bad actors selling and making these products accountable." Clancy said that if the state fails to take action again next year, then the council may reevaluate and reconsider. And in a quote, they say, "I'm hopeful that the state will pick this up in their session this coming winter," she said. "I think all of us on the council will be watching it carefully." Well, look at this. Missouri, big county out there in Missouri. Good job, you guys. Fighting back this prohibition mindset and keeping weed for the people alive and well with hemp. What do y'all got to say about this?
They screwed up their market. The product of it. Sorry, it's just they did. Mm-hmm. And their whole social equity program was even worse because
it was
the social equity licensees, the micro licenses that came in afterwards can't even sell or buy from like the macro licenses that came before. So it created two markets. It's so, fragmented. And then, of course, hemp is going to sneak in there and undermine all of it. Why wouldn't it?
Yeah, but Missouri dispensaries and operators are pretty much the only ones in the country that are actually making money. So did they really screw it up?
It's not perfect like anywhere.
Just saying. Dale's shaking his head.
Well, what people keep doing with their pocketbooks is telling politicians with their head up their ass they want to be able to have access cannabis products. Mm-hmm. Period. Whether you call it hemp, you call it marijuana, I don't give a shit what you call it. Intoxicating, they want to use it, and they're moving more to use that over alcohol. I mean, the statistics are pretty clear. And these are just games that keep getting played. But as cannabis is moving more towards full acknowledgement and legalization, for me, it's like sitting on the sidewalk with popcorn in a chair watching the parade go by. It's like, yeah, another fucking clown coming by, another clown coming by. Because the voters are telling you, not in the ballot box, but with their pocketbooks, what they want. Okay? And I think it's reasonable to say we don't want this being sold to people under the age of 21, just like alcohol. Okay? Let's make that recognition. We want to make sure that it's a product that doesn't have poisons in it, things like that, because people do smoke it. And basically, get the fuck out of the way of the industry and let it go. Make sure it's relatively safe for consumers. They know what they're getting. Get out of the way. Because right now it's fodder for continuing political battles that take us nowhere. And these discussions have gotten us nowhere. People in Texas want hemp in the local stop and rob, like the people in Missouri want it in local stock and rob, and they're not going to buy hemp unless it gets them high. It's just, let's connect some dots here that are pretty simple to connect. And it just marvels me how stupid these politicians continue to be.
Well, that's what politicians do. You know what I mean? Chris, you want to share this great news you just got with everybody?
Yeah, our company here in Florida, we literally just got our approval for greenhouses. So I got to go take some clones right after this show.
Yes. Congratulations. Any final thoughts on this, Shaun, before we close out?
No, I'm just going to celebrate that good news. Let's stay on that.
All right. Fair enough. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst Cannabis for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And Cloud Media partners Elias and Kai are somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.